Tal. Welcome to the Mel Robbins podcast.
Thank you, Mel. So good to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you. I want to just start with the beginning of your story, because here you are, one of the world's leading experts on the topic of happiness, something we all want to know more about. But when you got to college, you thought you were going to study computer science. So what happened in your life that created this big pivot?
So I became interested in happiness because of my own unhappiness.
Oh.
And, it started off even before college. I was a squash player. My dream as a young boy was to be a professional athlete. Initially, it was supposed to be basketball, but I stopped growing at about the age of 5, 6. So that didn't happen. But squash was it for me. And I wasn't happy as a child, but I would always tell myself, when I become a professional, when I win the national championship, then I'll be happy. And for years, I was quite miserable. And then I won the national championship. And I was not just happy, I was ecstatic.
Right.
For about 4 hours. And then again, going back to where I was before, the same stress and unhappiness. And I thought something was wrong here with my model. But then I said, oh no, it's when I become a world champion, then I'll be happy. And I continued towards that, and I played professionally for a few years. And then I got injured.
Okay.
And I went to college. And I said, okay, so I didn't make it in athletics, but I'll do it academically.
Okay.
And I went to Harvard, and I was a top student there, and I was miserable. And my sophomore year, very cold Boston morning, I went to my academic advisor and I told her that I'm switching majors. I was a computer science major. And she said, what to? And I said, well, I'm leaving computer science and moving over to philosophy and psychology. And she said, why? And I said, because I have 2 questions. First, why aren't I happy? Second, how can I become happier? And it's with these 2 questions that I then went on to get my undergraduate degree, then went to graduate school in education and organizational behavior, all the time asking, how can I help myself, individuals, couples, organizations, and ultimately nations increase their levels of happiness? And that was 30 years ago.
Wow. That's you sound like a really intense dude. No, seriously, like you sound like somebody that was incredibly tightly wound. But that's not my experience of you right now. And so I only say that because to me, if somebody that is that driven and that competitive and that tightly wound can figure out, first of all, why you're not happy, and also then figure out how to become a happier person and then translate that to everybody else, that's cool, because that means the rest of us can probably do it too.
There's no question on my mind, again, after 30 years of work, internal work, external work, research, that there is a lot that we can do to become happier.
So if you go back to that sophomore you at Harvard, and you're sitting there with your academic advisor, and your advisor says, wait, what? You're going to switch? Why would you switch? And you say, because I want to figure out why I'm so unhappy. What did you learn about why you were so unhappy that we might be able to apply to our own lives?
Yeah. So the first thing that I learned, or that was obvious to me at that time, was that success doesn't lead to happiness. We think there are certain boxes that we need to check. So for me, it was winning that championship, or later getting into Harvard, or becoming a top student, or getting a good job and making a lot of money. And we know, all of us know that the best that these achievements can do is lead to temporary happiness, a spike.
Right.
But that high doesn't last. So that's the first thing that I learned. Now, the thing that amazed me is that while we all know that achievement, attainment, reaching a goal will not lead to lasting happiness, we continue to live as if it will.
Why? Like, why wouldn't it make you happy to achieve something that you've worked really hard to get?
Because our system is built for the pursuit, not for the outcome. So once there is the outcome, there is sort of like, okay, check, been there, done that. Now I need something else. And that's part of our nature. And, you may say, it's terrible, it's awful. Why is it that it just is. Why is the law of gravity the law of gravity? And the question is, how do we accept nature? Just like we accept the law of gravity. How do we accept our human nature and then build our life based on that?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that one of the biggest things that somebody could take away from this conversation with you is that you are not hardwired to feel happy simply because you've achieved something, that happiness is tied to pursuing it, not the achieving of it?
Yes, and if you do live by the belief that achievement will lead to happiness, that will cause you a great deal of unhappiness.
Oh, that's a big one.
In fact, that is one of the main causes for the levels of unhappiness that we see in our world, because people are focusing on the wrong thing. They're climbing up the wrong mountain.
So can you break that down for us? Because I want to just stay on this point and highlight it, because if thinking about happiness wrong creates unhappiness, like, explain to us how you want us to think about happiness.
So happiness is important. It matters. Just like we are hardwired not to celebrate successes forever, we're also hardwired to pursue happiness. Okay. So it's not that I'm saying, okay, forget about happiness. Happiness matters.
Okay.
However, there's also research, and this is research done quite recently by Professor Maus, M-A-U-S, showing that if I wake up in the morning and say to myself, I want to be happy, or happiness is important for me, or it's a value for me, I will actually become less happy.
What? Wait a minute.
Yeah,
really?
That was exactly my reaction. That's a problem. And I read about this, 5 years ago, and I said, but, that's what I'm dedicating my life to. Of course, happiness is important for me. And yet what the research clearly shows is that this will make you less happy. So does this mean we should kid ourselves, say to ourselves, I don't want to be happy. Wink, wink, I actually do. Self-deception is certainly not the path to happiness. So what do we do about it? Well, let me use an analogy that was very helpful for me in thinking about happiness. Imagine you go outside. It's a beautiful sunny day, and you want to enjoy the sun. So you look up at the sun directly. What happens? You hurt yourself. It burns. It hurts. You tear up. So looking at the sun directly hurts. However, what if you take a prism and you break the sunlight, and then you look at what has just been broken? In other words, the colors of the rainbow. Then you can look at the sunlight and enjoy it, but you're looking at it indirectly. It's the same with happiness. Pursuing it directly and saying, I want to be happy. Happiness is important for me. That will make us unhappy. But if I break down happiness into its metaphorical colors of the rainbow and then pursue it indirectly, that is when I can actually become happier.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I can understand this, because you're saying, I totally get the part that if you focus at something maniacally, right, you're going to get the sunspots. You cannot hold that intent gaze at something, even if you want to. But when the sunlight hits a prism and it casts a rainbow, you're saying that the rainbow is the way that you indirectly enjoy the sun. I have so many questions. The first one I have is, what is the definition of happiness?
There are 5 elements to happiness. There may be more, but 5 main elements to happiness, which we call the SPIRE.
The SPIRE.
Elements. S-P-I-R-E. S stands for spiritual well-being. Okay. Spiritual well-being is about, of course, we can attain it through religion, but we can also find it through doing something that is meaningful to us, purposeful. By being mindful, by being present, we experience the spiritual. That's one of the colors of the rainbow. So if I wake up in the morning and say, I want to be happy, I'll be less happy. But if I wake up in the morning and say, I want to find something which is more meaningful to do, or I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes now, that is an indirect way of pursuing happiness. That's one of the colors. So that's the S of SPIRE. The P of SPIRE, that's physical well-being. Physical well-being is about nutrition. It's about about rest and recovery, sleep. It's about touch. It's about what we eat. That, of course, matters. So if I start to exercise regularly, that's an indirect way of pursuing happiness. If I eat more healthfully, the same. Then we have the I of SPIRE. I stands for intellectual well-being. That's about curiosity, about asking questions, about constantly learning, about deep diving, whether it's into a text or a work of art or nature. And these are, again, all indirect ways of pursuing happiness. The fourth color of the rainbow, the R of SPIRE, relational well-being. Number one predictor of happiness, quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. So if I spend more time with my loved ones, indirectly pursuing happiness. And finally, the E of SPIRE, emotional well-being. Emotional well-being is, first of all, about giving ourselves the permission to be human. In other words, allowing the embracing painful emotions that are natural parts of any life, even a happy life, sadness, anger, frustration. Allowing these emotions to freely flow through us paradoxically actually leads to more happiness. So these 5 elements of happiness, spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional well-being, are the metaphorical colors of the rainbow. And when we pursue them, we're actually pursuing happiness indirectly and becoming happier.
As you were describing all 5 elements, you did keep saying the word well-being. And what I wonder as I'm listening, because it makes a lot of sense, right? That all of these components go into a whole look at how to elevate or experience happiness in your life. What do I got to achieve next to feel that thing that I want to feel? How would you begin to explain to somebody like that what this actually means and how you pursue it? If you don't even know what happiness kind of feels like, you got the wrong definition.
Right. So the first thing that I would do is I would take a step back and explore models of happiness. Because if you think about it, in our culture today, we have 2 major models of happiness. The one model of happiness, which is mostly associated with the West, is you become happier by achieving your goals.
Right.
That's the most important thing. You get to the peak of the mountain, then you'll be happy. That's
Yes.
a model that I tried and that many people tried. It doesn't really work. The other model that people veer towards is, okay, so the future doesn't get us happiness. Let's focus on the now. Let's just be in the present moment.
Yes.
And that's an alternative model, which is mostly, again, this is very broad brushstrokes, mostly associated with the East. Meditation, mindfulness, be in the here and now. There are problems with both models. We know what the problem is with the future-oriented model, but there's also a problem with the present-oriented model, and that is human nature again. Because we do want goals, we are ambitious, we do want to achieve things, and whether you're living here or in Vietnam. And the question is, can these 2 models be reconciled? In other words, can you draw the best of both worlds? And the answer is yes. Goals matter. They're important. Whether it is to win a championship in sports, or whether it is to get into a college, or whether it is to make X amount of money. Goals matter. We care about them.
Why do they matter in the context of happiness?
Well, they matter because, again, it's part of our nature. We want to improve. We want to get better. And that's a beautiful and wonderful part of our nature, which we ought to celebrate, not attack. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
However, what we also know is that the achievement of these goals will not make us happy. What will make us happy? Not the achievement of these goals, but the existence of these goals. Whether or not I achieve them is actually less important. To have them matters. Why does it matter? Because think about it. You go on a road trip and you've no idea where you're going. So, you turn left or right, you look over, am I falling over a cliff? What should I do today? Is this the right thing? You're meandering, you're not certain, you're not happy then. But if I'm going to the top of that mountain over there, then you can, go there with full energy, with motivation, especially if that mountaintop is meaningful to you, which is an important component of a goal, of course. So you have a meaningful goal, you're going towards it. And what does having that goal do? What it does for you is it liberates you to enjoy the here and now.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's how the two of them are reconciled.
Because it gives your day-to-day life a sense of purpose and direction. And I can see how if you wake up in the morning and you're either just going through the motions, or you wake up in the morning and you're not quite sure what to do with your time because you're not quite sure what you want, how that lack of purpose then starts to probably make you think too much and probably make you start to dwell on questions like, am I happy? Am I not happy? What should I be doing? I don't know. Am I lost? Am I stuck? I mean, I've certainly been in those areas of my life. And so you're absolutely right about that. I see what you're saying.
And then what that means is that that future goal is not an end, but rather a means. It's a means towards liberating you to enjoy the here and now.
I'm Mel Robbins. I'm a New York Times bestselling author and one of the world's leading experts on confidence and motivation. Ooh, what was that?